السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلق الله سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه الأخيار المنتجبين وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، يقول الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، واتقوا فتنة لا تصيبن الذين ظلموا منكم خاصة. And beware of the mischief which would not affect only those who do wrong particularly. Quran, Surah Al-Anfal, verse 25. It is reported that the Holy Messenger of God, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, said, "Man asbaha la yahtammu bi umuri al-muslimin, falaysa bi muslim." One who becomes not concerned for the affairs of the Muslims is not a Muslim. Obviously, we know that Islam aims at building individual characters, building a balanced character of us as individuals. What do we mean by balanced characters? Meaning that individuals who apply the beliefs, the principles, the values they hold, they apply them, they embody them in their lives. Not that you believe in something, but your life reflects something completely different or the complete opposite. In a way that would bring you closer to God in this world and in the next. In a way that brings you closer to God, that you attain proximity to God, which is a goal that we all have in our journey in this world. Of course, having said that, Islam does not favor individualism, meaning that Islam does not teach us that we need to be just concerned for our own selves. I should be concerned just for my relationship with God and nothing else. I should be concerned about the others only as much as it influences me, or I see as it brings me direct benefit. That's not what Islam wants us to do. Islam wants us to be concerned for the people, wants us to be concerned for the others. Because the two are not separable. You don't live in isolation in this world, do you? You will be normally, naturally, inevitably influenced by the surrounding, by the people around you, by the environment, and you will influence the environment as well. No matter how little, no matter how maybe not obvious it might seem to you. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So, we listen to this narration from the Holy Prophet that one who is not concerned, or he becomes not concerned with the affairs of the Muslims, is not a Muslim. What does affairs here of the Muslims mean? Obviously, Islam wants us to be concerned for the affairs of all human beings. It's not that you are concerned for the Muslims and you don't care about the non-Muslims. The Holy Messenger of God showed ultimate concern for the people who are not yet Muslim. He was concerned for them as human beings, as individuals, as creations of God, servants of God who have a great potential. But of course, by the principle that you need to apply first, you need to care about your closer circle. You need to care about your family first. You don't, for example, feel concerned about the far away and you disregard the one who's close to you, who's close to you. And obviously, closeness of faith is the highest level of manifestation of closeness. So what does it mean here in the hadith? That we need to be concerned. We need to feel concerned for the affairs of the Muslims. What does it mean? Obviously, affairs of the Muslims here means the issues, the public problems that might be faced by the Muslims. As a nation, as an ummah, as groups, as communities. Maybe there might be Muslim communities are facing issues of poverty, economical struggles, maybe social difficulties, divorce, maybe psychological challenges, mental health problems. These are issues that communities collectively might be facing. Issues of security, wars, issues of safety, health. We need to be concerned about the people. Sometimes, or most of the times actually, we might not have any familial connection with those people. There's nothing that connects you, for example, with someone who is in a far village in Japan, maybe, who is Muslim. who's submitting to God, who believes in God. There might not be any relationship between you and them. No family connection, no history, no language, nothing that connects you. But you feel that concern. You feel that concern for those people suffering in the world. Some people might think, well, why should I bother? Why should I bother? Why should I waste my energy and time and peace of mind about something that is not at my doorstep? Why should I feel concern? And some might actually propose verses from the Quran. They would say that God says, for example, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 105, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu alaykum anfusakum. Or you who believe, you should be concerned with your own selves. Some people might quote the Quran saying, I should be concerned with my own self only. Why should I care about others? But obviously, this kind of attitude, it's very easy to judge it as it's short-sighted. It's short-sighted. Because you're assuming that problems that other people are facing will not eventually come to you, will not eventually come to your doorstep, will not affect you, will not affect your children. For example, if you have a community, a society where there is a spread of poverty, do you think it will not affect the wealthy people eventually? When you have a community or a society where poverty is rooted, it has become a phenomenon. What happens then? You would see social problems rising. You would see a rise in maybe crime rate. You would see sometimes people maybe taking advantage of each other. You would see these kind of phenomena. The community, the society becomes a fertile land for evil. And eventually it will catch you. Eventually it will harm you. There will be social disorder. If you don't feel it now, if you don't suffer from it today, you'll suffer from it tomorrow. If you don't act, if you don't feel at least concerned, if you don't care about it. If you don't feel it tomorrow, if you don't see it tomorrow, you will see it the day after. If you don't witness it in your life, your children will witness it in their lives. Their children will witness the impact and the implications. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it in the Quran. وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً, the verse that I started with. وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. Beware of that trial or implication or the mischief which would not affect only those who do wrong, particularly. Sometimes there is a community where there is something wrong going on. Some people are doing something wrong. Don't think that this will eventually not affect you negatively. Don't think so. Just because there's a majority of good people, then you think that only the bad people who are doing bad, they will be impacted. Like a ship. Like a ship. You have 100 people on that ship. 2 people are breaking that ship, are drilling holes in the ship. Would you not feel concerned? You would feel concerned because you will know that the evil act of these one person or 2 people will eventually get to you. That's how it is. Why do you think we don't live in this world like a big ship? Why do you think you are safe from the implications of these acts or these actions? So this is at the community level, showing concern for the problems of others, for the sufferings of others. Now let's go at the individual level. If we really analyze this, if we say that someone is, for example, not concerned for the other people, people are suffering, people are facing, troubles, pains, people are suffering, dying from wars, maybe illnesses, poverty, many problems. When someone does not feel the concern, it means that this someone has a hardness in the heart. This someone is suffering from selfishness. This someone is suffering from things that are opposite to humanity, basic sentiments of humanity, of humans, us as humans. We feel concern for others. When someone is selfish, when someone's heart fails to feel mercy for the others, their hearts become hard. قسوة القلوب, they call it. The hardness of the heart. Do you know what happens then? Then this heart, the problem is that it becomes a barrier for the reception of God's mercy. Selfishness, lack of concern for the others, it creates a barrier between you and the mercy of God. Not that you deserve the mercy of God and you are able to receive the mercy of God, but God doesn't want to give you mercy. No, no. You made your heart in such a way that naturally, existentially, it cannot receive the mercy of God. It's like, for example, telling you that your heart pumps blood into your body, to your whole body. You replace your heart with a kidney. Existentially, it does not have the capacity of pumping blood to your body. That's what happens when you are selfish. It's not that God doesn't want to give you mercy until you change. You cannot receive God's mercy. You cannot. You're changing your heart such that it is blocking the mercy of God from yourself. This is what ends up happening. How many narrations tell us that one who receives the mercy from God are the ones who display mercy? Only when you are showing mercy, only when your heart lives mercy, will it be able to receive God's mercy. It is narrated that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when his son Ibrahim died, the Prophet cried until his tears would flow to his beard. He was told, O Messenger of God, you tell us not to cry and you cry? You tell us not to cry and you cry? Obviously, if this hadith is reliable, crying here that they are talking about means what? Means this state that makes you lose balance out of sadness and emotions. That makes you what? Succumb, give up to your emotions. Makes you someone who is not sane. You lose your senses. That kind of crying. So they're telling him, O Prophet, you prevent us, you prohibit us from crying, and you are crying. He said, this is not crying. This is mercy, the Prophet says. This is mercy, and one who does not have mercy will not be shown mercy. Feeling concerned for the others, this is what it evolves in you, it develops in you. How do you think God develops us in terms of this? How do you think so? How do you think this happens? Other than by us looking and observing the sufferings, the challenges, the pains that other people go through. This is how God disciplines us to have this heart able to receive His mercy. This is one of the wisdoms behind what? Behind requiring us to feel concerned, so that we break this hardness in our hearts, so that we soften our hearts to receive God's mercy. Selfishness as well, lack of concern for the others, represents also a barrier to reform. To reform. When there is a problem, poverty, corruption, if you and I and him and her, no one is concerned. No one is concerned because I have my money. I'm fine. I'm not concerned. There's 1,000 other people who are suffering. It's not my problem, it's their problem, right? If you have this attitude, how do you hope for reform? How do you hope for changing the circumstances? Do you think those people, the corrupt people in authority or in power, do you think they would be sad to see people concerned for their own selves? Do you think so? Do we not hear that often? That, people of Britain, they should care about only Britain. Shouldn't really care about, for example, what people in France are suffering from. No. Care about what happens within these border lines. Or people of China, for example, they shouldn't be concerned about what the people in Brazil are suffering from. Why? Because there is these lines, the artificial lines that were drawn. Your level of humanity stops at that line. This is what we are taught. People should not feel concerned for each other. People in Lebanon, their concern should stop at the borderline. After that, they shouldn't be caring about what the people in Palestine are suffering from. People talk about this logic. Many people have that logic. They should be concerned for your own self. Shouldn't be concerned for the others. Forgetting that it's the problem of everyone. It's actually a display of humanity. You lose your humanity, your sense of humanity when you don't care. So, when you need to have any hope in reform, any hope in combating oppression, any hope in change, you will need to have this sense of concern. That we actually we work together towards eradicating corruption, for example. Those who are corrupt, they will want people to be separate, not united with one hand. Obviously, we should not let our concern for the people, our concern for the problems and the challenges that other people are facing, we should not let that drive us to anxiety or depression. This is a very important matter. It's a very, very important matter. We should not be feeling like we have the problems of the whole world on our shoulders. We should not be feeling like, for example, we are responsible for all the problems that all the people in the world are facing. It shouldn't lead us there. It shouldn't lead us there. Allah says in the Quran very clearly, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. You're not responsible for more than what you are capable of. What you're capable of. You can't change the circumstances of, for example, some people living in South Africa. You're here, they're very far. So you do what you can. You do what you can. You influence those who are next to you. You influence those who are around you. You are, for example, well off. You can't alleviate the poverty of every single person on earth. You can't. It's not possible. You need to accept that it's not possible. But you need also to accept that you do what you can within your means, within your circle of influence. Not that you let, because of the circle of influence, because that circle is small, you say, I can't do anything. No, you can. You can. الأقربون أولى بالمعروف. You can support your immediate family members. You can support maybe your further relatives from the family. You can support your neighbors maybe. Don't expect that you need to alleviate the poverty of everyone, that you need to make everyone happy. You can't. You need to accept that such effort, such goals, such achievements, they need the collaboration of bigger number of people, maybe bigger institutions, maybe governments to solve these problems. You alone can't solve it. God, brothers and sisters, wants us to have this spirit of concern for others. Not to feel responsible, that I'm responsible for the suffering of the people of Palestine, for example. I'm responsible for the suffering of some people in Taiwan. That's not what it is. Allah wants us to have this spirit of concern so that you are able of collaborating with others to achieve that common goal that you have with them. To achieve a goal effectively. So, this is what we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, that He may help us transform our hearts in such a way that we feel concern for others. Muslims, by priority. Non-Muslims as well. We need to be people who are the manifestation of God's mercy on earth, mercy on His creation. And this is how we show it, by showing concern, by showing compassion. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-Asr, inna al-insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu as-salihat, wa tawasaw bil-haqq, wa tawasaw bis-sabr. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم وصل على الصديقة الكبرى فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين صل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة أجمعين صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى محمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك ومنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة اللهم صل. My brothers, if I may ask you please to try to fill the lines at the front as much as you can so that we allow for some space at the entrance. عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله والورع عن محارمه. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, the servants of God, I remind myself and remind yourselves to observe taqwa, to be conscious of God and to stay away from what God has prohibited. Obviously, based on the first part of this sermon, we, or everyone actually who has a responsibility of education, as everyone who has a certain level of influence over others, every teacher, whether it's in madrasa or in schools, every parent who has children, we need to remember some priorities that we should actually exercise. I'll mention 5 so that we keep them, inshallah, in mind and focus. Number 1, we need to educate ourselves. It is important that we educate ourselves. We educate our children about what? About the greater issues that the Muslim Ummah faces. Not just be concerned, for example, about the issues of this community, or Bletchley, or just Milton Keynes, or just Britain. We need to be aware of the greater issues in the world, especially those issues that affect our brothers in faith. We need to at least know about them, learn about them. Maybe you will not be able to change anything. Maybe you will not be able to even influence. But at least you would be able to show concern, which is the thing that you would train yourself, train your heart to be, to have a soft heart. This is very important. You need to understand these so that you understand their possible implications over you. Some people might ask, why do we talk a lot about Palestine and we don't talk about other tragedies in the world? And indeed, there are massive tragedies taking place. Things that we don't know about, things that we haven't heard about. So many people are suffering. So many massacres are taking place. They have been taking place for so long. Why do we not talk about them so much? There are many reasons. I'll mention a couple. One is that, sometimes with these crimes that happen, the enemy comes and tells you, look, I'm killing you because of your religion. Very clear. Very clear. I'm killing you because I hate you. I hate your faith. I don't want, for example, people who have your beliefs, your values to survive. Very clear. With the issue of Palestine, brothers and sisters, the reason we talk about it often and often and often is that it impacts not just the Muslim community, the Arab community, it impacts us as humanity because it uncovers the layers and layers and layers of lies that the whole world has been fed for over 7 decades. Words sugar-coated in words like democracy, in words like peace, in words like negotiations, like political solutions, like living together in cohesion. Not suddenly, it was actually obvious to so many, but for the world, they've been lied to. They've been lied to by an establishment that is actually controlling the whole world we're living in. Now people are waking up to the reality of where are we living today? Where are we living actually? In the past, maybe 40,000 people might have been killed within 10 months. Maybe it happened. But today, when it's on social media, it is happening, and we see this deafening silence from the world. That's a first. That's a first. It uncovers the nature of the world we're living in. This is why the issue of Palestine is something that we should always talk about, because it actually points at the mosques that fell off, that have been there for decades. It's very important for us to educate ourselves, to educate our children on why we talk about these issues. Because if we don't suffer from them now, we will suffer from them tomorrow. Or our children will suffer from them. That's why it's important to address it now and today without delay. So this is one thing we need to educate ourselves about, that is the greater issues in the world. We need to also make sure that we develop compassion for others. We develop concern for others. When you can help someone, help them. Teach your children to help someone. Either charity or not necessarily charity, just help someone carry a certain bag. Okay? Teach your children to show this compassion. Like Ahlul Bayt were, alayhim salam. We hear so many stories about them. They were showing compassion in words and in action. Number 3, also we need to make sure we differentiate between what? Concern and anxiety. The issues that have been happening in Palestine, they are really, really difficult. Very difficult. Very difficult. On those who are observing, let alone on those who are living it, by the way. Very difficult. But that anxiety, that should not lead us to anxiety. It should actually, this concern should move us to try to do something within our circle of influence. This is what it is. This is the fine line between concern, which pushes you positively, and depression or anxiety, which pulls you down negatively, which puts you down. You should be able to combat that. Seek help from people who are professionals, that's fine. So that you ensure that you're positive, so that you ensure you work towards your goal. No matter how far it might look, no matter how small steps you might be making, you need to make them. You need to make sure you're not broken. Number 4, we need to learn to collaborate with others. We need to learn to collaborate, maybe at smaller scale. At smaller scale, this community here, this mosque is an example. Is an example. Not everyone can be a president. Not everyone can be, for example, taking care of serving the programs. Not everyone can be in the kitchen making tea. But you can find this little gap that you are able to fill. It could be by maybe texting someone saying, well, how are you? You haven't been in the mosque for 3 months. Are you okay? Has anyone upset you? Collaboration. Everyone has a certain part to play. Find what that is. Find your own taklif. Find your own obligation. You don't need someone to come and tell you. Find it. Only you are able to actually judge and find it. And number 5, which is also very important, we need to ensure that our concern for the public affairs of the Muslims and the people does not distract us from our concern for our private affairs. Make sure that when you care so much about the community, for example, you don't let go of your family. You don't disregard the rights of your children. You don't disregard the rights of your husband, your wife, your mom, your dad. Make sure that you still observe these. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us that we're not distracted from the personal responsibility. And perhaps this is what this verse means, that, O you who believe, be concerned for your own selves, or your own selves. Meaning that you don't step on yourself so that you show compassion to others. You need to take care of yourself, this amana that Allah has given you, until you return it to Him. We ask Allah that He may forgive us, that He may, inshallah, allow us to understand and to diagnose our responsibility towards our brothers and sisters in the world. I say this, I ask God to forgive me and yourselves. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.